There is a moment in the day when your mind stops being yours. It usually happens when nothing is urgent. The work is done. The messages are quiet. The room is still. The outside world finally leaves you alone. But instead of feeling free, something inside you starts investigating. A sentence, a tone, a memory, a mistake, a possibility. One thought becomes a question. The question becomes a warning. The warning becomes a scene. And suddenly, you are not resting anymore. You are defending yourself inside a future that does not exist. That is why you can feel exhausted while doing absolutely nothing. Because your body is sitting in the present, but your mind is trapped inside a trial where every possible outcome is evidence against you. And the strange part is, it does not always start with something serious. Sometimes it starts with a message that sounded slightly different. A reply that came late. A look on someone's face. A decision you are not sure about. A memory that returns for no clear reason. At first it feels small. Your mind says, let me just understand this. And that sounds harmless. It even sounds responsible. But then understanding becomes replaying. Replaying becomes checking. Checking becomes imagining. And imagining becomes suffering. Not because the situation is always dangerous, but because your brain starts treating possibility like proof. One possible meaning becomes the meaning. One possible mistake becomes the whole story. One possible outcome becomes the future. And before you notice it, your mind has taken one small uncertainty and turned it into an entire emotional storm. This is why thinking too much feels so hard to stop. Because it does not feel useless while it is happening. It feels important. It feels like preparation. It feels like protection. It feels like if you think through every angle, you will finally feel safe. But most of the time, you are not solving the problem. You are rehearsing fear. And the more you rehearse fear, the more familiar it becomes. Then it starts to feel believable. Then it starts to feel urgent. Then your body reacts as if the imagined thing is already happening. Your chest gets tight. Your focus breaks. Your mood shifts. Your energy drops. Your mind keeps searching. And you cannot relax because some part of you believes that relaxing would be careless. This is where the trap becomes deeper. Your brain has one basic priority before anything else: safety. Not peace. Not confidence. Not productivity, safety. So when something feels unclear, your brain tries to close the gap. It asks questions. What did they mean? Why did they say it like that? What if I made the wrong choice? What if they are upset? What if this goes badly? What if I embarrass myself? What if I lose control? What if I cannot handle it? These questions feel powerful because they carry emotion. But emotion does not always mean truth. Sometimes emotion only means your mind is overloaded. Your attention is scattered. Your body is tense. Your nervous system is tired. And your brain is trying to create safety by predicting everything before it happens. But you cannot predict your way into peace. You only exhaust yourself trying. And modern life makes this much worse. Because your brain is now trained to expect instant answers. You search something and an answer appears. You open an app and something immediately reacts to you. You send a message and part of you expects a reply. You scroll for a few seconds and your mind receives a new image, a new opinion, a new warning, a new comparison, a new problem. Again and again, all day. So when real life becomes quiet, quiet does not feel peaceful anymore. It feels suspicious. No reply feels personal. No clear answer feels unsafe. No certainty feels like danger. But uncertainty is not danger. It only feels like danger when your mind has been running too fast for too long. And today, many people are already mentally full before the day even begins. You wake up, and before you even understand your own mood, your brain starts absorbing the world. Messages, news, tasks, videos, comments. People's problems, people's opinions, people's success, people's lives. And then one small thing happens. One small sentence. One small delay. One small decision. One small mistake. And your mind has no space left to hold it calmly. So it turns it into a loop. This is the part most people miss. The problem is not always the thought itself. The problem is the speed of the mind receiving it. A calm mind can look at a problem and say, okay, what is the next step? But an overloaded mind looks at the same problem and says, what if everything goes wrong? Same situation, different internal state, different reaction, different life experience. That is why you can handle something one day and feel completely overwhelmed by the same thing another day. It is not always about the size of the problem. Sometimes it is about how much pressure your mind was already carrying before the problem arrived. And once the loop begins, it can feel endless. From the outside, you may look completely normal. You answer messages. You do your work. You talk to people. You smile when needed. You act like everything is fine. But inside, your mind is running simulations all day. One version of the future goes wrong. Then another version gets worse. Then another version makes you feel guilty. Then another version makes you feel behind. Then another version makes you feel like you should have known better. And your body responds as if those scenes are real. That is why you can feel tired even when nothing physical has happened. You were not resting. You were defending yourself from scenes your mind created. You were preparing for conversations that never came. You were answering accusations nobody made. You were solving problems that may never exist. And after a while, this changes how peace feels. You stop trusting calm moments. When things are quiet, your mind starts searching for what is wrong. When someone is distant, your mind starts filling in their thoughts. When you make a decision, your mind starts opening other versions. When you finally sit down to rest, your brain brings out everything you pushed away. So silence starts feeling uncomfortable. Stillness starts feeling unsafe. And rest starts feeling like the moment your mind turns against you. This is why many people keep themselves busy without realizing it. They scroll. They check. They clean. They open another tab. They watch another video. They reply to something that is not urgent. They look for another distraction. Not because they are lazy. Not because they have no discipline. But because noise feels easier than facing the mind when it has nothing else to hold. But here is the truth most people need to hear. The goal is not to force your mind to stop thinking. That does not work. A noisy mind does not become quiet because you attack it. And telling yourself, stop thinking about it, usually makes the thought louder. Because now your brain treats the thought as important. Something to fight. Something to monitor. Something to defeat. A better question is not, how do I stop this thought? A better question is, what is this thought trying to protect me from? Because behind most mental loops, there is usually a fear. Fear of being rejected. Fear of failing. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of losing control. Fear of making the wrong choice. Fear of not being enough. Fear of being embarrassed. Fear of repeating the past. Fear of being hurt again. Once you name the fear, the thought loses some power. Because now you are not trapped inside the loop. You are looking at it. There is a big difference between saying, this will go wrong, and saying, my mind is afraid this could go wrong. The first one feels like reality. The second one creates distance. And distance is where clarity begins. You do not need an extreme routine to deal with this. You do not need to disappear from the internet. You do not need to become a completely different person. You need small interruptions in the loop. Start by writing the thought down. Not because writing is magical, but because a thought inside your head feels endless. A thought on paper has shape. It has edges. It becomes something you can look at instead of something you are trapped inside. Then separate facts from stories. A fact is, they have not replied yet. A story is, they are upset with me. A fact is, I made a mistake. A story is, my life is falling apart. A fact is, I do not know what will happen. A story is, it will definitely go wrong. Most mental suffering comes from treating stories like facts. So before you believe the thought, ask yourself, what do I actually know? Not what do I fear? Not what do I imagine? Not what feels possible? What do I actually know? That question matters because the mind can create hundreds of possible stories. But reality is usually much smaller. Then give your mind a boundary. Instead of letting one thought follow you for the whole day, say, I will think about this for 10 minutes, then I will take one small step. Your brain needs limits. Without limits, every thought becomes a doorway into another thought. And every doorway leads to another possible problem. Then reduce unnecessary input when your mind is already overloaded. Not forever. Not as some dramatic detox. Just for a while. Because a stressed mind does not need more opinions. It needs fewer signals. You cannot calm a busy mind while feeding it endless noise. You cannot expect clarity from a brain that is constantly being interrupted. Sometimes the most useful thing you can do is remove one source of stimulation, one app, one search, one argument, one comparison, one unnecessary check. Not because these things are evil, but because your mind needs space to return to itself. And finally, come back to the body. Walk slowly. Drink water. Look around the room. Feel your feet on the floor. Relax your jaw. Drop your shoulders. Take one normal breath. Not a perfect breath. Not a performance. Just a real one. Your mind pulls you into imagined futures. Your body brings you back to the present. And the present is usually smaller than the story your mind created. This is the real shift. You are not trying to win every argument inside your head. You are learning not to enter every argument. You are not trying to delete every fear. You are learning to recognize fear without obeying it. You are not trying to become someone who never thinks deeply. You are learning the difference between useful thinking and mental punishment. Useful thinking gives you a next step. Mental punishment gives you another loop. Useful thinking becomes clearer with time. Mental punishment becomes heavier with time. Useful thinking feels grounded. Mental punishment feels urgent, repetitive, and endless. So the next time your mind starts building a story, pause before you enter it. Ask yourself, is this a fact or is this a fear wearing the mask of a fact? That question alone can break the spell. Not perfectly, not every time, but enough to create space. And space is where you get your choice back. Because you do not need to answer every thought. You do not need to believe every fear. You do not need to prepare for every version of pain your mind can imagine. You only need to notice the loop, name what it is protecting, separate the fact from the story, and return to the next real step. A calmer life does not come from having no thoughts. It comes from no longer letting every thought become a command.